one. In we step to the halls of Bank, and we'll see who can prevail in this first map of this best of 3.
Ooh, it's feeling fun. I'm so excited. I think The Thing is obviously here in Montreal, as it's pronounced by Milosh, as he's just walked past.
Bonjour, Montreal.
Bonjour, Montreal. It's so exciting. And to start with this, a game that we know, a game that we've had in the hotel. I mean, even last night at about 11, I heard someone scream down the hotel corridor, "I'm coming for you, Bibu."
There's been a little bit of beef between these teams, interestingly. Doki mentioned it in the video. He was saying, you know, that Mowgli's been like, "Oh, you're going to shake, you're going to shake." And he's like, "No." And I said to him, "Do you think you can beat them?" He's like, "No, we're going to destroy them." Big, strong words, lots of belief in themselves here. A little bit of a rivalry being formed, and we're ready for this one. Got to say, Bibu cutting the hair as well.
Oh, bald
That's
Bibu
commitment
buff.
To this game.
It's the bald Bibu buff. It's dangerous. You worry about it. But at the same time, the buffs kind of have to come through. Like, when we've seen these teams get to where they are, it's sort of a mix of who's been popping off and who hasn't. Last time they were here, P4 went unbelievable. Bibu, throughout the sort of playoff stage, has been much sharper than he was during the groups. G2, some of the players have dropped off a little. We don't have Doki, we don't have Alamau defining a game, but we have Benjamaster, we have Virtue coming back into it, finding these big moments. So it's really, you know, it's impossible to call. It's just truly impossible to call who is on a better form right now, because anything can happen.
We have rifled through those bans. Ying, the big one that really stands out there for me alongside the Nook. If you've ever watched Bank before, you know that Nook is a go-to ban, but the Ying, looking towards the smokes, the Candelas, the executes that operator enables, it makes total sense to see it taken away. One of our most banned operators here so far at SI as well. I've only just seen that for the first time, that we have the venue lighting up a bunch of wonderful colors when the action phase starts.
I know, it's cool. Beautiful. I want to see, because we didn't get a true taste of the rehearsals yesterday, but
no.
We start here in the basement of Bank, as expected. Soulless, also as expected, consistent. And with the double down of Alamau on the pulse, it's an information game that G2 have played pretty well throughout most of this tournament. They have an awareness, and they have a lockdown on what Wolves want to do. They set it on the desk. Wolves are really good when they set up, when they can play as a team. So how do you shut it down? Remove that from them.
One thing you'll often see is this layered sort of defense that comes out of G2 across a number of their maps, where Doki's normally the first one to meet them in. Then you'll have Benja as kind of the second line of defense, and then you'll find out Alamau will be lurking somewhere nearby, just in case you forget about that third member. So really, that's going to be the idea for Wolves, is to peel back these layers one by one, take them out, and get down to a spot where you can execute in a 5v3 or potentially a 5v2, assuming you can clear them all out. A little bit of support from Virtue as well around blue stairs, just hoping that someone's going to come sniffing. As of yet, not to be the case, as you can see. 2 or 3 members of G2 hold up inside open area, just trying to gather a bit of information before they drop back through the hatch in the next 5 seconds or so.
I mean, you could see the hunt was coming. You had P4 just on the shoulder, and his impact in this game could be big. He's only gone positive in 2 series throughout this whole tournament. One of them was against G2, and he went about +11 by the end of it. You need sort of that sharpness, that force on the front to work alongside Mowgli and work alongside Bibu, as I said before, who's been a big boon. The starts across the top. They're looking down green stairs, angling and pressuring the players. The first engagement, they always say, it's Doki. Always a bit risky, and Doki's tempted.
He's feeling a little bit cheeky, right? You want to try and poke your head up there and find out a kill or two if they're getting themselves into slightly too comfortable positions. But it looks here for the Wolves that their big focus instead is going to be trying to work out towards square side down. So potentially a bit of a dump in towards open area hatches once they have that control. We're into that last 60 seconds though, Emmy, and I'm thinking to myself, there's not tons of real information coming in on the downstairs right now. They've done really well to keep the drones alive, but they've still got a bit of work set up to do, knowing there are still C4s and smokes available on the other side.
It feels cautious. It feels like they're concerned about this first engagement. They have to have it go their way. They have to start with that mentality, that momentum. They have all these pings, all these ideas, but everybody's 3 feet, 5 feet away from the start of it. Who is going to be the first one that says, screw it, we're in?
The thing is, they've still got, again, all 3 smoke canisters and C4s, and another Vulcan canister has gone off. They've got enough here to hold out, I think, Emmy, if they carry on. Wolves are going to have to force the issue here. They're going to have to go aggressive. They're going to have to burn through a bunch of utility. Shinka inhaling loads of gas. Mowgli finds one. Bibu goes down elsewhere to Benja. We're into a 3 versus 4. It looks like it's going from bad to worse for the Wolves as we get into the last 10 seconds.
They hit a brick wall, but suddenly a bit of blue pops up. It's a 2 versus 1, technically, and now it's nobody. As you said, there was so much still in the pockets. The Wolves, they weren't quite in conversation with G2. They were trying to say, well, this is ours, this is ours, this is ours, and G2 said, okay, have it. We've still got the site and pockets full of danger.
For me, it was the discipline, right?
Yeah.
Like, they had all that utility, and I've seen teams before layer C4s and smokes on top of each other. I've seen them panic toss C4s thinking there's something going on when nothing is happening. But for G2, that was probably the most disciplined hold of the downstairs I think I've ever seen. 60 seconds left, they rotate, throw one Glaio canister after the other. They have smoke start coming out from Virtue. They've got the C4s if required, and you saw Wolves have to make this sort of desperation play as we got into those last 10 seconds. And sure enough, they got a couple of kills, but had no way through to actually get the plant down. Really well played by G2, not looking to get too aggressive, falling back step by step. Wolves have got to be able to be a little bit faster than this, I feel. Try and pinch onto these players that are trying to fall back and give yourself the numbers advantage before you come round to the execute.
Round we go. Open is the next sort of potential force here, and I'm always eyes on when Oryx is on bank. I love it. I mean, in EUL alone, we've seen big plays up, rotations around on the back end. You're thinking of stock. You're thinking of rotating around underneath and maybe hitting the elevator shaft. There's just possibility. Benja, what are you up to?
Not at all surprised to see him being aggressive in the earlier round. Again, you see this out of Doki normally. He's the first point of contact initially, but then Benja is always lurking somewhere nearby. The trade play between several members of the G2 side is great. It's like a triangle between those front three that I mentioned a little bit earlier on. So you are going to see them looking to control parts of the map, but there's a potential backstab. P4 working his way in through the basement. Not yet spotted out, of course, but he could strike big and catch G2 on that return back to site like I mentioned earlier on.
Who is going to be that first bit of pressure here for Wolves? It was slower, it was steadier, fine, but it's bank. You have to lead in with some of the aggression. You have to make sure that you step up this early on in the sort of fight, because G2 aren't going to shy away from it when it comes to their door, but they're not going to go hunting for it. There is a take.
I mean, that's a Doki kill.
I mean, that's a Doki kill.
Nice and cheeky, straight out the door, bringing down Ryze, who was at the top of blue stairs. That does give a bit of a whiff here that you might have one or two players lurking through basements, so G2 should find themselves being a little bit more careful. P4 still to emerge, I imagine, up marble stairs here. Also got Bibu looking to work his way forwards. In fact, no, P4 has doubled up around square as well. So Wolves all looking to come in together, but Benja is still in archives, ME.
He's causing problems. He's looking for these fights. Another one's about to swing on his left-hand side. He's not fully aware, but that'll give some of the game away. It sprays and peppers. Not too many bullets left in that gun. Benja can't quite get the full connection as Doki does find Bibu. Shield's gone. P4 does win one out. However, look at what has been removed from the side of Wolves here. No more hard breach, no more Monty, no more of that A-plan push. At this point, it is all down to P4 and Shinka to see if they can try and bring a bit of a trade game. Unfortunately, they cannot even get close. Shinka has to swing. Does some of the close damage to one, pops his way back round to Archives and looks for the lead on the next fight, but with a minute, it's a lot of time here. G2, you remember, hero plays were your downfall last time. Please stop trying to be a hero. We've suddenly gone into a 2 versus 2 from a 4 versus 2.
Oh, Shinka!
Shinka is going absolutely massive. He has all the time in the world. At this point, Alamau is in this clutch situation. He's crept in close. He's able to win one out. And it is teetering on the edge, both of them with such a small amount of health. He's got a grenade, he can put pressure onto the swing and pop round on the back end. Alamau just has to sit, stay steady. The kit has to be put, it has to be pressured towards the site. He's got the SMG and the shotgun depending on the range. This could be Alamau's, there's the ping, but he does not move. The pullout comes. He's playing this time as much as possible. Just saw a glimmer, just saw a sliver of the player on the back end. P4, what are you gonna do? Do you swing and pre-fire the angle? Do you know where he is?
Shinka! Unreal 1v4 coming out. G2 going to be livid that they've peaked him time and time again, and he's taken scouts for fun that round. A player, let's not forget, Emmy, that when we started out in this competition, wasn't performing the best. Not really hitting too many shots, but to hit 4 in that round and win it for your team is absolutely unbelievable.
I mean, a 4 versus 1 with a player down on the ground. G2, hey, it's me. I cast your game the other day. There was something Fabian said. Stop doing the bleeping hero plays. We're throwing this game. He was proven correct, and you just think, okay, you gotta have that, you know, panache. You gotta have that want to fight, but you gotta not do that.
As energetic as they were during the group stages as well. Incredible. You know, part of the story for me today coming in, you touched on P4 already, was are we going to see Mowgli and P4 firing? Because you can almost guarantee you'll have Doki and Benja firing, but when you've got your backline able to pull off plays like that as well, zero complaints at all. A great way to get Wolves back into things here. It's a bit of a curse really for G2, because I think back to the start of last year when they played Bank against then known as Rogue, now Koi. Although they won that game, Koi or Rogue, for me, were the better team on the day, but G2 were winning because of Citizen and Doki's hero plays, going absolutely nuclear, popping off with 2Ks, 3Ks, and 4Ks every single round. There, I kind of feel people have wanted to play hero. Exactly like Fabian said, let's dial it back a little bit, boys. We don't need to go silly, hold your crossfires, but they paid the price there. Round 3 we go into. Virtue, once again, as he was in the previous round, is currently starting up on the top floor on that Oryx. He'll be up there more looking to pop out when someone does start to work their way through ATMs, of which there are two, both Bibu and P4 pushing in from that west side of the map.
Will they find them? You can see it's a very different approach this time. Instead of going for the take directly towards the open site, they've pulled themselves around the single player at the top of square, fine, and some pressure on the windows, and round Banana and Virtue hot-footed out of there before things become a little bit dicey, but otherwise it's a lobby take. It's the big open space, draw the attention away, go away from the shield, which plays against the response from G2. We saw so many Goyo canisters put on that close sort of other plant, and it seems like with this initial approach, they're going for more of a study control.
It's a little bit of a panic smoke coming out of Alamo there a second ago. I know he's still got 2 left in pocket, but to burn the one when there was no one there is probably a little bit, you know, panicky.
Yeah.
I thought it was Wolves who got the most panic in the first 2 rounds, but maybe now you're starting to see G2 slightly rattled by that massive 4v1.
They've got to know. I mean, they have to know that it's a big aspect of their play that has cost them dearly throughout this tournament and against teams like this. It's sort of said how you play on the day is a very important factor, and as I called now, the attention towards stock. They've got themselves in over the top. You can get control of this space. You can cause problems, but this kind of take means that those loose roam players, if you haven't got the confirmation on the kills, they can define this whole round. There's a lot of motion available to them.
They've got to make use of it, though, when it presents itself, right? It's all good having those roaming players, but if they aren't near, they execute when it all kicks off, they may struggle to have an impact. We saw some really cool stuff the other day. In fact, this is pretty cool. Doki being down already there. Mowgli taking control of square and looking for a couple more victims.
I mean, he's getting in close. He's hoping someone tries to get the player. He's waiting for the audio. Will he go? All brass for the swing. There's 1 take. There's 2. Is it 3? Caught in the fire, and he finds it. No, Doki just gets the trade out there.
You see the B4 as well. Really thought Doki might find him, but he marches in. Alamau caught completely unaware. And this is what I was talking about. These players out on the road, if they're not too close to when things kick off, they are going to get going. 2-1 to Wolves on the attack.
It's that pressure. If the comments that we made was round 1 of Wolves, come on, you got to be a little bit sharper, a little bit snappier, different sights, sure. Round 2 and 3, it's just been progressing and faster and faster and faster. I love that sign.
Love Siege 8.
Love Siege 8 Tez.
Simple as.
Simple as.
Thanks, Fresh.
Thanks, Fresh. But, I mean, G2, I think you saw it there in Alamau Smoke. You saw it there in the play, the pickup. Benja just sort of back to the door, running away. It's strange to see him not turning into a fight. I
think probably because what they assumed was before you had a member of Wolves trying to push into the room itself, they would have popped out the Goyo canister that was in the door. Probably in hindsight, you know, hindsight being 2020 is exactly what it is, 2020. But if you look back at that round and say, okay, well, could Benja have shot out the Goyo Vulcan canister and then gone for the pickup? Sure, it would have been the much safer option, but in the moment, opted not to do that, assuming that instead Wolves would take it out before they tried to push in. They were proven wrong, and Mowgli just really demonstrating again why he has been such a demon throughout this tournament. First quarter's down, though. Downstairs, back into the basement we go again, Emmy. Let's see if Wolves can be a little bit quicker or pinch onto a couple of members of G2, because last time it came down to that utility dump, and G2 have got exactly the lineup ready for exactly the same defense once again.
I'm having flashbacks, Derry. To the last time these two teams met. It was a similar sort of build into the game where you look down the side of G2 and it's quite even. It's not that anyone's falling too far behind or too far ahead. Then you look over to Wolves. Those players that have popped off, 3 of them so far, have all pretty much been the defining factor around Mowgli. You have obviously P4 going absolutely massive in the second round. And it's that idea, that fire of how do you stop someone on their day? How do you stop someone that is feeling this game more than any other? Maybe the threats in the elevator were correct.
Maybe very so. I mean, we'll really wait to see how things transform in the second half. I do like to give teams I mean, okay, that's the way to take out the biggest problem on the other side. Doki starting to feel himself as well, taking down that entry on the other side. I spoke about this entry battle between these two being the defining factor of this game, and that is not going to change.
I mean, we talk about a panic smoke before, and this isn't a man that's panicked, but maybe a little bit irritated. He's looking into the fight either side of Banana. The pressure comes on the back end. It's pretty much impossible to defend from 2 angles, but he's done more than enough from 1. Remember, the side is all the way down in lockers. Doki, you said it, he is happy. And he trusts the team to play in the 4 versus X, regardless of what's going on.
You've also taken out a hard breacher here, so I don't think Wolves have got enough to get every single hatch opened up. They've got to work through the top floor. They've got the 2 exothermics, but one of those they probably want to commit to the thermite wall. So really, they've got 1 hatch they can have on their side here. Doki has done enough in that round, but what I like was the response from G2. He goes down that top floor. They aren't overcommitted to supporting him, but the 2 players that were still out on the round, they get straight back to site saying, boys, it's 4v3. They don't have a headbanner anymore. Mowgli's gone. We've got to sit, hold our angles, and not give them 1v1s again.
Time ever-presently ticking away, and they're just pinging and rotating their way around. They've still got gates, they've still got canisters, they've still got C4 and a pulse in the read of it to try and put the pressure across, and while there's pressure still leaning back in, the canister pops, and so does Alamau. Removes P4 on the back end, and if the Twitch hasn't been able to get the rest of the Goyo canisters, that's going to turn into another problem.
You know what I realize we might miss while we're here on stage?
What?
Back timeouts.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to hear the commentary. Maybe we'll hear it. Who knows? Who knows? But again, a lot of work being done by G2 here. A lot of it being done by Doki in the early round. We're now into that last 20 seconds. We still have 3 smoke canisters in back pocket. The first one coming out. Alamau's trying to make a play, but does get stung for that one. That's the only hero play that will be allowed in the round, though. Last 10 seconds coming in. Wolves, it's now or never. Find your kills, or this round is done.
I think it's pretty done at this point, and it's locked in by G2. They pull themselves back level, but twice on the same site. And yeah, it's Bank. It's the sort of map that Wolves wanted to come to, and it's a good one for attackers. You can see the 4-2 split is not the most common, but it's not unheard of. And you have the idea here that we want to see more like this from Doki. We want to see those adventurers. We want to see those sort of plays and bits of motion. There's the C4.
Oh,
nice.
Beautiful.
It's the pulse.
Alley-oop.
And then he ends up on the top floor somehow.
Well, he thought, well,
you just think, how did Alamau get there to be?
The thing is, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was actually a call made by the team, you know. Okay, main stairs is now clear. We know there are 2 coming down through blue. Go for the flank. If we can hit them and end the round that way, no problem. And in the 4v3, you probably don't mind burning 1 member to try and make that happen. So overall, a good call, I think. I don't blame them at all for it. I don't think it was Alamau going off the tether and trying to do anything too crazy. G2 still find themselves with the round. The thing is, Emmy, with how the last couple of rounds have gone in that first quarter, Wolves won both. You're staring at a 4-2 half.
Yep.
I do look back, though, at the second round and look at that big clutch that came out and go, realistically,
It shouldn't have happened.
it shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't have happened.
So then suddenly it's a 3-3 half, and 3-3 halves seem to be the narrative that we've had in so many games here at SI. I forget the exact number, but I know at the end of group stage, over half of our games have gone to overtime. It's been so ridiculously close.
G2. Continually juggling operators, who's going to play what, where, and when. It more seems like pulling it out of hat at points. We've already had a pretty consistent rotation of who's on what role, including the Oryx, including, you know, obviously now Blur has picked up the Goo Mines Elysian. Where they want to try and put the pressure onto becomes a bit of a tougher understanding here. Doki has obviously had most of the appearance in terms of the entry statistic, but it has strictly been Mowgli, who I believe has the best entry out of anyone in the whole tournament. He's something like...
Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
G2, hello, phoning G2. Yeah, collect call.
Amazing. Now they've got to react. Shinka finds one. Doki into a trade, but answered by Rise straight away. Wolves really caught G2 by surprise here, and they've got to scramble for an answer. Bibu inside the lobby catches another one on the rotate round. They've got this set up to perfection, Emmy.
I mean, they caught even our observers and us by surprise. The spray across. They're looking side to side. You're looking at the timer. Only about 10 seconds left to make the distance towards the kit. At this point, it's just being locked out, and Virtue has an impossible task ahead of him. Dez?
Yes.
What happened?
G2 were just so focused, I think, on trying to work their way around open area that they got stung in archives big time. I don't know. You had Doki and a couple of players hanging down that side, 1 or 2 hanging up on the second floor, but even I missed that one. Blink and you'd have missed it.
Well, if you're unaware, there is a tech timeout that has been called by G2. There is the man,
The myth, the legend.
Unfortunately, we can't hear him, so I'm assuming...
It's probably got the F-bomb in there about 17 times.
I mean, you can see he's angry, and you understand why rounds like that shouldn't be happening on this stage.
I think the big message you'll probably have coming out to the team is you look half asleep, boys. Like, look back at round 2 when you gave Shinka the 1v4. Look at the round just now where you've let them slip through a defense that we probably ran through 1,000,001 times. You know, little things are costing them rounds here. There's 2 rounds arguably that G2 either should have won or at least stopped happening. But WOLs are the ones very firmly in the... Oh, we get the replayed audio. Okay, stop that 3rd time.
See, that's the thing there is... You have a conversation, you have an idea of, all right, Wolves might have stolen a 2nd round from a huge play. There's no question that that round was theirs.
Oh, the fade out.
Little fade away.
I love it. It's very much spoken much about the coaches for these 2 teams as well. Not forgetting that Lilun has obviously been around for the longest time.
Oh, yeah.
Now through with WOLs, stayed here seemingly forever, along with Helby as well, of course. He's also behind the scenes. And then G2, Fabian doesn't really need much introduction, but also got Titan behind the scenes as an analyst as well.
Exactly.
Backroom staff, I think, actually, as far as it comes to star-studded backroom staff, both teams have got that.
I think that's always the thing about sort of those people on a team is we're very familiar with them.
Those people,
the parade, the ones that can't shoot anymore. Fabian, is they have so much to them. We'll hear rumors and rumblings from an analyst side of, have you heard about this guy called Titan? Have you heard about what, you know, Helby's worked out or Leland's worked out? And it's always that curiosity of they're the ones that have the book of plays. Open once again, and obviously seen twice, lost twice. One of them shouldn't have been.
Where's Doki?
Where is Doki?
Oh, he's on site. That's a rarity.
How is Doki?
Doki is sat on site. Everyone else is off on the top floor, trying to do work upstairs, for example. Benj is out towards Archive side. They've really got a good spread here across the whole team. It's just rare not to see Doki being the one taking the entry. Maybe wanting to pause a couple of rounds here, have more impact in the later stages. So a small formation change, you might say, for G2.
Virtue is the one playing the power position where there was some panic before. This time, they're going to get the barricades up. They're going to get themselves what seems like more of a hold above. They're not going to pull back. They're not going to give away territory, not as freely as they have before, but with a little bit more time wasted, a little bit more pressure. P4, in the meantime, sneaks his way underneath. There's about to be a quick swing round with the skeleton key. Hot droned in on the back end. They had the pickup player on the IQ as well, just in case. And now, suddenly, those banana players are in a trickier situation. P4 finds Doki. Hey, we know where he was, inside sight. So suddenly, Virtue has all these alarm bells ringing. I'm under pressure here. They're putting pressure on the side. He's got to fight his way out. He gets the first, cannot see the second on the windows.
Now he knows.
And now he's going to see if he can just hold on a bit longer. He's looking for this engagement. Will they give it to him, though? Because they don't have to.
He gives them a small breather, I think, but really there's a lot of damage already done by WOLs here, and Virtue up here on the front line. I think he's probably sick and tired of seeing the team just crumble around him being left in 1vx's. Clearly wants to make an impact, make himself heard. Dipping back inside here as well, away from the window, turning his attention inwards to the map itself.
Alamau hasn't moved.
Nope.
He's stayed in the same sort of spot, and finally, we get some of the rumblings, because finally, remember, there's only really one in sight, but Blur at least wins out the first fight. They're inside the kitchen, trying to put the pressure on. They're putting the pressure down on the kid as well, as you said, and how are they going to rotate their way back in? Blur is removed. Bibu cuts the site in half, gets control of Archives, and swings to the fight on green. Shinka, he's still going to try and get the plant. Alamau, he's able to win out one, but Mowgli on the back end, and it's all down to Virtue. Gets the cover, gets the second!
There he is! Put in the front line, but can still peel to the back and decimate walls when it matters most. That one was personal. G2 win a round and take us up to 3-3.
Well, they got the 3-3 half, which is kind of what we maybe said they should, but about half of those rounds shouldn't have. No. I think that's the fair way of breaking it down. You're looking at confrontations that are impossible to call at points.
What I will give is, honestly, that was one of the stronger attacks from WOLs as well, I think.
Oh,
the rounds have been great, but the pincer play, they always had someone ready to take a trade, even here against Virtue. One on window, unlucky not to get the trade coming through straight away. Then when it came around to sides itself, Virtue wins the 1 versus 2. After Shinka won the 1 versus 4, you really can't knock someone for taking a big hero play and coming out on top. Just a great round overall by WOLs and by G2 in response, despite being down 2 so early on.
Ooh, look at this, 5 cameras to reveal drone spots. I mean, with Solus on the board, you'll see teams leave them outside for a long period of time. You don't just want to have them thrown away. If they're set up, they'll be spotted. So keep them.
As safe as you can.
But this, you know, it was the game that we had the other day. The drone economy from G2, to put it politely, wasn't great. It was, there's a lot of other words, and there's probably worse words that Fabian would use. You'd see them, you know, 2 minutes, a minute 30 left on the round, and they only have 4 drones. They only have 3 drones left. It's a big loss against a team that can work as sort of tight as Wolves can.
I think they'll be quite happy they've got all 5 drones still alive from that as well. Even with the Solus being on board, they've spotted out that there was the Echo. They've got a couple of drones looking for flanks downstairs, for example. So it does feel like they're ready here in this first defense. You'll see quite a few differences, I think, to what we saw out of G2 as well. Heck, we already have. When you look at the castle barricades being on side in terms of the setup that it invites and the way these two teams are playing, for me, looking at how good Wolves were at pincering onto individual players in that last round, really for G2, we've got to see a similar start coming out if you're going to shut down a player like Mowgli.
How do you deal with a problem like Mowgli?
You have to put him in the dirt.
Well, let's see.
And pray that he doesn't do it to you first, which often he will.
I mean, well, that's the thing about Mowgli. As I said before, he's the best enterer of the whole game. He even tips Newers on that scale at this point. And when his performances haven't been as sort of marked about or written, it really shows how much potential Wolves have. If the rest of the squad can move in and start trying to put the pressure alongside it. You can see P4 is well and truly on the hunt for the fight. Baits the play, shoots it. With
that was bait.
Yeah, getting the cover on the top. Almost found it. But look at Wolves. Look how they're stacked up under Archives and above.
Alamar looking to still be alive after that. I mean, they know the P4's around here. They tried to bait it in with Benja. It's why he was still sat waiting the door. We've seen a few teams go for this kind of bait play, by the way, although it's Rise to start things off. Benja being down, dropping his way back in towards site here. Again, Wolves, like G2, happy that they've got a numbers advantage and are now happy to play on site. Except for P4.
Except for P4. G2, in the meantime, they're trying to hunt. They're trying to find that loose thread, and we complimented the last round that we saw from Wolves on it because they were so quick. There was always a second body. They made sure that time became a factor, but to be fair, the first round we did the opposite. So G2, they still have time to grow. They still have opportunities. They're just being a bit steady. They're trying to find an engagement. I'm not entirely sure where that's coming from.
It was me.
Ow.
I brought an air horn.
Oh, right. I don't know how Tim puts up with you.
He doesn't. That's why he's not here.
Yeah, true. True, maybe that's why. But how do they put up with those grenades? Both of them. Neither makes impact. You're looking at 50 seconds. As far as I know, the wall's still standing as well. And P4, top square.
I feel like Wolves are going to be very happy with this. Think about how they started their attacks. They were very bunched up. They pushed us 4 or 5 together at the same time. G2 have been very spread out, and Wolves have punished them by just hiding around corners and looking to tag them down that way. That's how Rise found Benja early on Square. There was no one there for a trade. There was no real support coming in on drones for him, so he got punished for that. That's the kind of thing G2 will need to get better at, I think, to beat Wolves, is to play more as a team, rather than looking for your solos, but they found one. Can't find the second as Rise gets the trade.
I mean, 15 seconds, they're hitting Peepers, they're hitting Stock Catch, and they're just hitting Wolves. Wolves entirely pushing them back in, and they take the round, but the G2 had no time.
You can tell where the French fans are in the audience as well. Every single round, Mowgli just appealing to them for the cheers as they go. Again, I know we're sat at 4-3 on the scoreline, but for G2, the play style here on that first round is a little bit concerning. We do need to see some changes. They've already had their attack timeout as well. Do you want to woo as well?
No, I have to be unbiased. No wooing from me, but the audience...
What sound would G2 make?
Tears, mainly.
It would just be a Fabian voice like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's quotes of Fabian. Okay, G2, well, if you are slow onto open, let's see how much faster you can be on a slower site. You have to try and have a lead in. And we said this a lot throughout this playoff spirit, is Benja was the guy. Benja was the factor. He was the solution, as he tweeted, because he would make those plays. When you're suddenly in this sort of deadlocked situation, he would appear and get a kill, get 2 kills. Might be traded off, but it starts the conversation.
One thing you can't forget is that some players in live environments like this on LAN, you know, in a bit with a crowd as well on a big stage, they thrive in that.
Oh yeah.
They get only better. And I'm not saying this is like why Benja is 2-6. He's having a rough game. They all are, really. They are being bullied around the map by Wolves, but it's a lot to adapt to. Not forgetting that he's equally, you know, really, really young. It was a miracle, frankly, that Spoit played as well as he did all the way through to them winning Berlin back in August, right? So it might just take a bit of time. It might take a map, for example, then to drop and work their way back into it. Not forgetting that it is Wolves' map pick, but things are still really tight at 4 and 3. It's far from over.
Exactly. It's not their map. They're leaning in. It grew into a 3-3-half after a very shaky start for Wolves, even though it was even. It, as we've said many times, shouldn't have been. P4, he's suffered a scrape through the open windows, but hasn't handed over the territory just yet. You can see G2 still going for the full clear. Doki up top. Just sort of playing against it. The first bit gone, but they still have, obviously, pockets of utility minus C4. Okay. Goodbye, P4. See you later.
What does he take with him? Nothing really as well, so it's not a massive loss in the form of the soul. It's like, sure, the information would be great, but they've got all the tools they still need. I mean, the C4's gone from Rise, but they've still got the Vulcan canisters deployed. They will have 1 Yokai online. They've got 3 smoke canisters. We were really heaping praise on G2 for having all of that still online at 60 seconds. If they can hold out another 40 without burning through utility, which I imagine they will with Shinka playing on blue stairs, there it comes now, they could start to get punished as we get through, and the Twitch is already getting work done on site. This is much faster from G2 than what we saw out of WOL so far. Wolves need to make sure they're being careful in this execute.
It almost feels like they know how to attack this one. The pressure's going to come around. They're going to get the hatch open, see if they can swing onto it, but they have to make sure they don't get swung onto. Benja with the cover. There's some ADSs behind the shield. They want the hatch to be open, and then if the player tries to get it out of there, he knows he's got to potentially play his life, and you know, with the danger of the hot canister behind him, with the drones rolling through, another smoke canister potentially set up there, playing underneath. He doesn't have an escape. A misthrown first grenade. The player wasn't all the way around the back, and at this point, how much longer is he going to sit there?
Got to push it from the bottom as well, but I don't know if that Vulcan canister went off. There we go. Now it pops out. He's safe. Wow. Gets one with the shotgun as Mowgli finds a second. A very committed defense coming out of Wolves for these blue stairs.
Oh, Mowgli with one more down on the back end of green, and what seemed like a fairly standard setup and go has gone. They've removed the players. The player in blue still stands. Blur and Alamau, all that's left. He's dropped himself into sight via the hatch, but he's surrounded. And he's torn up. Blur, 20 seconds. They know where he is. He's trapped in the back of a box. 3 players left. One's about to swing him on his left. He's got one on his right-hand side as well. He's able to get another 1 versus 1, and the left-hand side player pulls himself further away.
Any plan?
I mean, he has the kit, he has the option. Whether they have the intel or not, we'll probably find out very soon.
They're coming, but they are coming in. Slow pulls off there, finds Bibi, but doesn't know about the last, and Shinka's going to waste time here. I think he gets away with it. So close for Blur, but Shinka goes the 1v4. God, it's me, not you. Wolves up 5 and 3.
Second time they've been able to thread 2 rounds together in a row there, and we said this was better from G2. Then it got a bit worse. I don't know if people can hear from home, but I know there are mics in the audience.
There's a lot of going on.
A lot of awoos.
For the Wolves, obviously.
Yeah. I mean,
just in case you think it's booze, it's not booze, it is awoos.
Mowgli was sharp as attack.
He was. I mean, really, Doki was kicking himself there. He's had 5 or 6 bullets to try and win the gunfight against Mowgli. At that range, with the ARX, you should be winning it every day of the week.
Yep. How you play on the day, mate.
It's how you play on the day. This is the wonderful thing, and I always say this about Siege in general, is that on the day itself, a team can be 50% better than normal or 50% worse than expected. If you have players that don't show up, for example, or you're just not hitting your shots, everything else can be going right in terms of strats. And I gave an example earlier on when we had Rogue versus G2 back in stage 1 of VUL last year. On the day, Rogue were the better strategical team, in my opinion, but G2 still hit their shots, got 2Ks, 3Ks, and 4Ks across every single round, and they won the game as a result. Just goes to show, if you're not hitting your shots, Siege, as an FPS at its core, will not go in your favor.
G2. Timeout, obviously, a fair few rounds in the past now, and before you even got to this
and Wolves are not about to offer them one.
And Wolves are not about to offer them one. However, if we have a look at the showdown last time, G2, they had a 5-2 lead, and it flitted away from their fingers to get to OT. At one point, Wolves on the second map had a 6-4 lead, and G2 were able to bring it back from that point onwards to OT. You know, it's never really over for these teams, but it's getting over that mental hurdle of we're missing some of these engagements, we're whiffing some of these shots. We don't quite have Benja, who was, again, that big prominent power player, but they do have a little bit more, I think. Alamau, they have a little bit more Doki this showdown than the last one, as those two weren't quite in the same connection before.
when it comes to entry, you've got WOL's currently set at 3 and 1 as well. Sorry, +3 overall. No, +2. I'm a liar. I can't do maths.
It's all right. Neither can I. That's what Tim held.
That's what Tim does.
He held the maths down.
He likes his numbers.
Tim and Hap.
They hold down the fort. Hold the fort. Either way, numbers-wise, I'm looking down the kind of scores that we've got here. Like the cost so far is like way in the lead for WOL's, unsurprisingly because they are 2 rounds ahead, but entries with them, KD is with them. They are dominating the numbers here, and it's showing in the gameplay again just how they've approached a lot of their rounds. As C4 and Todoki, down he goes again, cannot get a foot into this second half.
No, he is being repeatedly shut down as he was before. Wolves target him, whether in the elevators with threatening words of shaking hands or
in
not.
the server.
Benja, though, does get one back, does get a grenade kill, a skill he has been an absolute master on. Not to just use his name. How can Virtue get a lead? And he's a little bit alone. And he's trying to swing the fight. There's players on his right and on his left, and he's able to win the first. The second should and does get the return, the response. BBU had to step in there, and a very important trade back.
It's been the tail of the tape again, Emmy. Yeah, again, a 2 versus 1 being sought out by WOL's. G2 leaving Virtue to push alone. I think Blur had just taken the decision to get himself up and out of the map. Maybe he was on the window repelled to assist, but it's again come down to the numbers game, and WOL's just keep on sending more guns than G2 do.
Shinka locks Alamau out on the top floor, and, well, the UMP, it can be a beast. I think it was Foxay who did an ace with it at one point on this site. I definitely know it was Bank. And then you steal the setup and see if you can replicate it. Blur, he's going to see if he can steal the site itself. He's swung his way in. They did have a bit of banana control before, but lost it now. And the 2 versus 3. Blur, he's creeping his way through. He's trying to go a bit unchecked. Wolves aren't handing him anything. Look at the time, look at the fight. Takes the first swing, ducks under the second, doesn't get traded out. Benja with some of the cover on the back end. He's
got to hold.
Looking for the loose fight. Blur, hold your nerve, hold F and hold that down to the floor. The pre-fire is Benja's in a post plant. 2 versus 1 versus 1, and around we go. Rise either side with the scrappier gun. He's looking for the take, looking for the body, and looking for some semblance of a sliver here of Benja out of grenades, and a gun that you said should be able to win these kind of engagements. He has the distance and doesn't pull the trigger.
New versus old, and old prevails. WOL's up 6 and 3 in G2. It's looking dire on these attacks.
Whoa. There's a bit of a fight, a bit of excitement, and a bit of us on the edge of this map. 3 rounds in a row, 3 rounds. The separation to pull us to OT. Here on the first map, Wolves, can they lock it out?
Staff and open area going to be the final site, potentially, that we head into. Wolves, of course, working through the full selection here. I think we've seen Rise be pretty energetic during the group stage, but Mowgli is on a level today.
I mean,
not just in the server as well, but
no, but
it's
a level you need. It's the energy, as you said. Some players, they're online players. Some players are main stage players, and some players don't know it until they get there. Mowgli might be one of them.
It's unreal, really. I know across the world, I just look back at some of the new players we've seen come into the game over the last 12 months, and I think it was maybe 6 months ago when we were doing APAC North and the UL, we were saying, you know, there's probably in each region 3 or 4 players that have come through. I think about like Mephi, for example, over in APAC. We've seen players like Nuas light up the night sky, it feels. Mowgli's done the same, Benja's done the same. Just so many young gunners with such talent coming in that on a day like this, when one's shining and one isn't, you can see the impact in the game.
Closing things out, a guide that wasn't written by Wolves. And that's the difference now, is you can talk about mentality, you can talk about fire in the round, but we always have to harp on about the pressures of the end of the game. The 2 hardest rounds are your very first and maybe your very last. And they just need to be able to slip the distance. Alamau coming up underneath, doesn't have the kit, but does have an idea on a hatch. They are going right towards a site where no one's in, but Benja gets locked down from the back end. The slightly off-center hold gets back with Virtue getting some cover, but BBU has Blur. And Alamau, that's a nice shotgun, but you're a little bit out of range of anybody. Doki slips his way around the corner, but nobody's there. They're looking and knocking on doors, but the French have moved to a different location, and the only thing they're taking is the bank.
Taking all the money to the bank as well. What a statement from WOL's in map 1. G2 unable to really do anything, and even in a round where they tried something a little offhand, could not find the answer they needed. A lack of droning really punished them in the last round, and not a single attack on their side. I mean, I think really shows that Fabian's going to be having some stern words in the break.
I mean, he's had those conversations with world-beating teams before, and he's had them on dire circumstances than this. But he's got to go back to that I haven't shattered in 6-month bag and maybe pull out some of his favorite Fabianisms.
What I really loved was when I was speaking to Pengy the other day, he was like, that's the Fabian I remember. When stuff really has got to be done, that is when he makes himself heard. But G2 have got it all to figure out in the break. Wolves one map away from progressing with such a dominant performance here on Bank. Skyscraper comes up next.